Yes, carry on. Hmm.
So it was so magical for her to see what it did to him, because she says, "I don't have so much with color, or I can I can't relate to it, or I can't. If you ask a question, I can't say from, oh, that's yellow or that's." But it was so wonderful to be looking at her while she was looking at him, while he was all uh, yes, um, he found answers within the color gnostics while doing it, and she was all, oh wow, what's going on here? And yeah, and she asked the question, what to do with people who are colorblind.
Yeah. I'll get Thelma to answer that question about the colorblind, but I'm going to go back first to your comment where she was saying, "Oh, I can't choose the colors." And I have people like that who are clients too. So what
Mm-hmm.
I will say to them is, because they're trying to get it right, they're not connecting emotionally. I say,
Mm-hmm.
look, just just forget the question, forget the problem. What color at the moment don't you like on the board? What color do you like? Seems to take away all their mental processes about how they should choose it. That's my point there. But Thelma, would you like to speak about the colorblind?
Yeah, and I think it's a similar thing. They do see colors, but they are, in our view, they are distorted. But they still are have a preferences or a dislikes for any color. So it's often they often feel it more than they see it.
Mm-hmm.
So that's like the same with people who are really completely blind. You can just put the cards on the table and let their hands go over it. You can train yourself to do that even. Um, because you will feel the energy and I think people who are blind, their senses are far more developed because they're losing one sense, like eyesight, but the other senses are then further developed. And it's because it's an energy that that is the essence. Yeah.
Okay, so look, it's 8:05, 8:06. I think we'll get started. So we can ask more questions later, but if we just begin the PowerPoint, I think we've got everybody coming in. And Esther, did it take very long, the process that you used?
No, I didn't. Well, it um I think it was like half an hour or
Yeah.
three quarters, because
Mm.
we were talking about it too, and he was so curious, and then he gave examples for that he, as a child, he started to be thinking in colors. So what he's
Mm.
so what I tell is all his week is separated in colors. So Monday always is that color, and it was he said, well, Thursday is a heavy day, and he mentioned the colors. So uh, because he already he already took the fifth steps. So then he, oh, may I look it up, because perhaps I can understand why Thursday is such a heavy day for me, because
Mm.
it's that and that color. So that was, yeah, it's yeah. So
Well,
it
Esther,
went on
yeah,
from, yeah.
And did
Esther,
he
you have,
recognize
yeah. Sorry, Carrie.
did he
Thelma?
recognize something related to that day with
Yeah.
the color? Okay, good, good.
Yes.
But it
Yes,
Mm.
he
could
did.
also be like, we all compartmentalize things. Like some people have, or January is such a month when my birthday is on another month. That's, my month or not my month or whatever. So that is what he does. And there's nothing good or bad within that. It is just the way we deal with life.
Yeah. Yeah.
Esther, inadvertently, sorry, you carry on.
No, because he also gave the example from sitting in the classroom when he was a child and he was watching at the map of the Netherlands, separated in the provincie. I don't know how you call it in English, in countries. And he says, and I still don't like Friesland or something because it had a bad color for him. Yeah. So yeah.
So as I was saying, Esther, without you realizing it, you have actually just talked about the very thing that today's webinar is about. And you have given us that example because today, we talked about, we had said, take your coaching from good to great. And so what we have prepared today is our PowerPoint. If Thelma's going to bring it up, if you can do it, Thelma. So the today is about what makes Kalanostics different and our powerhouse step. Right. So the game changer step is step 2. And it's actually the core of our whole 5-step process. It links the vision board, the physical symptoms, the human processes, which we're going to show you, and even the workshops. And just as you spoke about, Esther, was that man actually was identifying his block. So he'd gone right through the process, really, and realized that he hadn't dealt with the block. So let's have a look at step 2 further, Thelma. So clearing the block is not the same as the problem. It's a complex web that lies underneath. It shapes our reality. And what often happens, if we go to the next slide, is that it begins with a particular hurt. But it's a bit like a snowball that hurts when it's thrown at us. And then you think, oh, I don't ever want that to happen again. So you protect yourself, but it just adds layers and layers. And then your subconscious mind thinks that hurt might be coming. You're starting to predict what another person might say or another event. So again, you're just adding more and more snow to form this wall. You're always on the lookout for those other similar pains. So those blocks are our emotional responses to painful moments, but we shut down and in some way, now we may react with anger, we may react with taking ourselves away, but it's all to prevent experiencing that pain again. But all of this is done unconsciously and it becomes an automatic pattern. There's one reason we create them, and we do it. They keep us safe. And as Carl Jung said, people will do anything, no matter how absurd, to avoid facing their own soul. Well, that's very heavy. But in reality, people have their vulnerabilities, and we don't like to have them poked at or mentioned, or we feel very exposed if somebody wants to challenge us about them. How do blocks show up? Well, in our behavior, our emotional reactions, our inner dialogue. But it's very interesting with our blocks. We don't necessarily see them, but other people do. And if you're even in a situation where you are discussing somebody else, we very clearly see where somebody else is blocked, or they're where they're holding themselves back. but it's very difficult to act on something that's actually keeping you safe. They don't just affect thoughts, they manifest physically in body language, symptoms of pain. One of the clearest things is body language. When somebody walks into a room, you know what they believe about themselves, don't you? It's all in the way that they stride in or sit back or how open they are to others. And then we call it shy. There's all of those things are there. We have our own personas, our own energies, but we also, just as we do with colors, give people a lot of information with what we're wearing. 95% of our communication is nonverbal. Can you break the block cycle? Well, they start as an unconscious choice or a decision. It doesn't feel like a decision, but it actually is. It's a choice that you make about how you will react. But choices can be changed. And again, we go back to Carl Jung. Until you make the unconscious conscious, it will direct your life and you will call it fate. So finding a way to bring those unconscious patterns into the conscious mind is what we need to do with step 2. So this is why step 2 is so powerful. All the steps are important, but you really can't do anything without step 2. That's the one that's going straight to the core of the vulnerabilities. It's revealing the block itself, but it's also keeping you safe because you are just simply choosing a color. But it will reveal the web of self-talk, the emotions, and the energy that's keeping it in place. Step 2 will often bring up memories and other realizations. And Esther, you just told us that man realized that he'd got to the end of that more simple process, but then he said, oh, hang on, Thursday is a heavy day. And suddenly he started to remember why that was a heavy day. When you ask that the color itself and in the question you've asked, that your subconscious mind will put all of that information together, and suddenly people will say things, oh my God, I haven't thought of that in years. I never thought those two things were linked. So as a coach, you've got that opportunity to explore it, ask questions. Are these things still true? Does this still make sense? And we have that in our template that's in your module. Now, sometimes you don't need that. You don't have to do this every time. And step 2 doesn't always require that. But if somebody has come to you with a real issue, it is always worth doing. Has that brought up any memories? How long has this been? When did this start? Because you want to get as much information about it as possible. But when we say as much information as possible, we'll go to the next slide. We are wanting still to keep that easy and simple. That shift in perspective will happen very quickly. Just again, I'm going back to Esther, just as he realized, I've assigned Thursday to be that heavy day. That shift in perspective, as soon as you have that realization, your inner world changes, everything moves around. Then your outer world changes. You start to see things differently. So you don't dwell on step 2. You're not there for ages. You are just as much time as you spent on step 1 or the other steps. It is really being able to get that new information, because when you have new information, the original problem changes shape. So the restrictions you've placed start to melt away. And that's when those old disempowering choices and beliefs can be reassessed. And you can actually make a new choice about how you will carry on. And I want to give just a very simple example of how that happens. I had a very busy weekend. I had people coming to stay. I was, getting ready, a meal ready, and I was starting to become very tired. And I was thinking, oh gosh, I've got so much on, all of those things we say to ourselves. And then I just stopped, did a very quick color gnostics, and I realized what was blocking me. Yes, I did have a lot on. That was my problem. But what was blocking me was my attitude. Oh, I'm trying to do everything perfectly. Oh, I mustn't. Everything must be ready. Everything must be. There must be nothing left undone. And again, that. Oh, I'm going to be judged. Oh, I'm not doing as well as I should. And as soon as I realized that, I thought, oh, what am I saying? I've invited these people. I want them to be here. I can choose to be tired and try to be perfect, or I can just relax and say, it's going to be great. And immediately that tiredness just dropped away. So my energy it just zoomed up. It just went back straight up, and I felt enthusiastic about all the tasks I had to do. So as a coach, the colors are giving you the right questions to ask. And we do need, we always remind people to just keep moving through the 5 steps. Don't get stuck on the problem side of the board. Simply ask the next question for the next step. And a really good example is if somebody has had they've come to you with a problem where, I'm going to use a child's example where something has happened, and one of the questions, and they're now perhaps not sleeping in their own bed, or they're not going to school. And then, yes, we've got the block, they're terrified, they're scared, everything's gone wrong. The best question to ask is, and when did this start? That simple question. The parent may say, oh, look, I'm not sure. For some reason, the child will say, I know when it started. It started when a particular teacher came, or there was a particular event. Just even asking that question when you've already identified the block gets the subconscious mind racing through all the memories to know the answer to that question. It's because you've asked the right question. So again, the coach's role with color gnostics. Let their colors do the talking. You've put your client in the driver's seat. You sit back. It doesn't mean that you do nothing or that you're completely passive, because people do need help to move through the process. But you can reduce the coaching talk, and by that I mean the advice or your opinion about it. Just ask those questions, and we do a lot of that in the fundamental modules, particularly in the one about the NLP questions, given lots of different ways of asking questions so that their new awareness can take shape. It is usual that sessions go in highly unexpected directions. Esther, just as you discovered with your client as well. So with the colors, what we find is that you can be really confident, but let the colors guide you. But it's also, the colors will also give the right words to your client. And I remember one particularly surly, difficult 18-year-old boy that I had who did not want to be there. But you can't pick the wrong colors. It just, may start out doing it. It just doesn't feel right. And he just looked at me and said, ugh, how's that book reading my mind? And that is what it's like, even if the person is not that willing to be doing the process. So trust the ease of the process, enjoy it, and your client can enjoy it. And even if you're doing something very deep and serious, you can also be lighthearted with it. And it just means that when you go to greet your client, you know that if you allow the process to work, that it doesn't matter what the problem is, your client has been given the means for their voice to come through. So, for those of you may not be aware of this particular process, this is what we call the human, the color man. I use it with children, but I also use it a lot with adults, particularly where there's a lot of anxiety or trauma. You know, somebody's just been diagnosed with cancer, for instance. You know, there are no words, or if it's grief. So I would just say, look, we're going to pick the colors, but I would like to just find out where you are feeling it in your body. And by doing it this way, we just pick the color. Where would you put it in the body? And this way, we're combining how they're feeling physically. So the physical symptom will guide us also to the emotions. So you can see here that what's in the hands, they're feeling shaky, but they've put in grey. So then we can go back to grey and see what that has to say. So, you know, how's your breathing? So I start with the physical. How's your breathing? You know, in this situation, I'll put that colour in first, and then we'll go to the colour. Here, the throat, that you can see that was quite dramatic there with afterwards we will come to the meaning. And then I always do the feet. The feet in this process tell you so much. It's how they are in the world. And the knees are how strongly you are in this situation. So you've got, I always think of head, heart and gut. Always add in the throat because that's the expression of themselves. But that has so much information. So this is a person that's gone into panic, hyperventilation, frozen. So they're not even able to put those things in words. Once we've done that, I then go back to those colours and then we can add the words in. The relief that this process brings about, it's a very dramatic representation. I use it with children, I use it with nonverbal people, but also it's a wonderful one with adults. It's in our working with kids module, but it's wonderful for people to take away the positive. We then do it in the positive, and that's the one they take away. Children ask me to laminate it. They put it by their bed, but adults do the same. So I don't know if we should change that working with kids because it is such a great method to use. So again, with the other module, we use the step 2 in. Oh, if I just say all of the ones in that human, they're all about it's step 1 and step 2. It's really the block that you're putting on that picture of the man. We do the same with our vision board module. You know, we've all got goals. You know, gosh, I'm going to go to the gym. And blow me down, a week later you haven't been, you know. And so this is your goal, that's what you want to achieve. And so if it's immediately you put that goal in, is there anything blocking it? Put that block in and you discover what the block is. You are able to release the block so that you have yourself, you change your belief or you clear that block. Everything's then going in the same direction. With our goals, often we have an unconscious part that is actually in direct conflict.
So, yes, my favorite aspect of colonoscopy is with physical symptoms because, well, most of us have some physical symptoms and we all want to get rid of them. And what are physical symptoms? Physical symptoms are actually trapped emotions that are giving us an indication of the way of our thinking. Deepak Chopra did a study years and years ago. He went to hospitals And he went to certain departments, and he went, for instance, to people who all had heart problems. And he asked these patients, so what has given you heartache? Or what happened that really hurt your heart? Or people who have digestive problems, what kind of trauma or what has happened that you cannot digest? And the patients all had a very clear answer. So everything that we experience, it is actually a expression of thoughts that started a long time ago. If it's a trauma, like an accident, it can just hit you in one second. But there is no true accident. It is actually because everything is energy, so we attract or we push away. And I love to talk to people and ask, what are their physical symptoms? When did it start? And can they describe how it feels when they go through that, when they just think about their physical symptoms? What kind of pain does it give, or it's hindering from doing something? And then the last question is, of course, what color would you give this feeling or this pain? And people are always surprised that actually, and it could be years and years and years before they can identify what was the emotion that happened, or the situation that happened that triggered a certain emotion. And then over time, it developed into a physical symptom, because all our thoughts are just thoughts, but in the end, they create, or they materialize, they create a reality. It could be positive, but it could also be negative. And then when you look at that color that they've chosen, they can actually understand the emotion they had or they experienced when a year ago something happens, and that eventually created a physical symptoms. And what we do then, we go to the opposite color. The opposite color is actually trying to alleviate that one frequency, and we bring in another frequency that is quite opposite. So we go to from step number 2, we go to step number 4. So we replacing that inner dialogue or that reaction to a situation with something that is counterbalancing it. And not often, but I have had experiences where clients instantly actually got rid of the pain, and some of it was there for a long time. Not always happen, but it is also, again, reprogramming the mind into a different thought pattern, and that can alleviate the physical symptom. So that's my favorite.
Saskia has asked a question.
Yeah.
What if they don't know when it happened or started?
Well,
what I would say, okay, you're going.
Most people do know approximately. It doesn't have to be, the date, but most people know. I've had my knee problems already for 2 years, or for 10 years, or it just started last week. It's never pinpointed, because chronic diseases, I always give it a 6 months before, a time frame of 6 months, because it has to develop. It's not always instant. Is that
so? Yes. So what I would say to that, Saskia, it's a great question. So that's where if you go back to those NLP questions in the module, what I would say to people is they say, oh, I don't know when it started. Oh, so you've had it all your life. Oh, no, I haven't had it all my life. Oh, so in this job or that job. Oh, no, it actually started. Quite quickly, they actually do know when it started, but they don't necessarily know what happened. Now, there's not always a specific event, and this is not just for physical symptoms, it's for other things. They say, no, it started sometime around then. Oh, so that's a very common answer. So then my next question, and this is such an important question, is so what was happening around that time? Well, gosh, my mother was very ill with, and she's in the hospital a lot. Or, oh, that's when I had that boss, that temporary boss that came in. Or, oh my gosh, that's when my husband or my child was going through that difficult time. Oh, so you've got these other lead-in questions, and what was happening around that time is one of your most powerful questions. And then the person's subconscious mind, remember, it's always it's finding information in quite a different way. It's trying to answer the question. Whenever you pose a question, your subconscious mind will want to find an answer. It's just the nature of it. So you're always helping that almost that hidden truth or those hidden answers to come forward. And if you ask the right questions, that's why we have used NLP. If you want better answers, ask better questions. And it is a skill. It is why I trained in NLP, because when I first started in the work, I realized that it's all about those questions. The person's inner self will want to answer. Sometimes we'll ask quite a closed question. When did it start? Oh, gosh, I don't know. But if you can say, oh, what else was going on around the time it started? Such a lovely open question, and people will open up with that. So have we got any other questions around that? Around step 2? Shall we just open it up? If we just go to that final slide, I think, Thelma, what's our next one? Oh, look, actually, even in a workshop, but I know what, I just wanted to go back to the physical symptoms. I would just like to tell you this story. This is again with somebody who was helping us with our accounting, and she said, oh, I see you do the physical symptoms. She said, oh, look, I've just got this funny thing. I've got this bit of eczema behind my ear. And so I said, oh, okay, that's interesting. And just she said, yeah, I just don't know where it's come from. Never had eczema before. So did the color, did the physical symptoms, and it was what came out of it was that it had started when she had met this new man in her life, who she is now married to and is deliriously happy with. And she was just so much in love. And she said, it did start around then. She said, but I don't understand it, because really we are just such a perfect match. And so what's blocking you? What was the negative color? And the color she picked, she said, oh my gosh, she said, I know what it is. She said, one of his daughters, I had to meet one of his daughters, and I just got the sense that she did not like me. And I just felt as two girls were talking behind my back. And she said, I can remember now thinking, I'll deal with that later. She said, it's like I just put it behind my ear. I knew they were talking about me. I'm not going to face it. I'll just put it behind my ear and I'll deal with it later. And in fact, by the time she was talking to us, she had dealt with it and she was getting on with those daughters, but she had really not updated that issue. She said as soon as she had realized what she'd done, I tucked it away, and I didn't tell him. I did not want to tell my partner. I knew that it was something for me to deal with over time. She said it just went. That patched all the creams, everything she'd done, didn't have any effect. That was what she'd done, and she remembered. And this is what often happens when people clear the block, is they often laugh and go, "Oh my God, I see what happened here," because it's such a release, and suddenly the whole problem just changes. It dissolves, it melts, you it now has changed shape, and you are then able to move to step 3. Step 2 makes step 3 possible. That's the thing. If you that's how the process actually works. Otherwise, we're just asking you to make goals and do positive thinking. Thelma, would you like to talk about the workshops and how we do step 2 in the workshop, which is often a public time, but how do we do it there?
Yeah. Well, interestingly, we in the workshop we do 1 and 3. Why? Because it's more general. Actually, step 1 and 2 and 3 and 4 are very similar. The difference is the step 2 is really in the I form, and the step 1 is more in the whole general issue. And what we've done is we made it in a workshop kit where you can invite 10 people. I've done it with 40 people or 50 people because I had enough kids. So you just ask a question: what is bothering you in your life? What is your issue? What's wrong? And everyone can just pick a card, a color, and read it for themselves. So there are different cards, and then the attendees can read it for themselves in private, because we wanted an opportunity for people to experience it without telling the whole world about their issues, especially when the group doesn't know each other well. And that is just a taster, because most people will think, don't know about this with color, what can it actually say about me? And then they have in private, they can read what it signifies, and they can digest it. And then we go to the opposite color. What would you like to feel instead, or how do you want to behave instead? So this is just a taster for people. I used to do with Color Comfort in the early days a lot of those workshops, because especially more than 20 years ago, people would look at me with glazed eyes and color, or does it look good on me, or is it image consultant? They didn't know what I was actually talking about until they experienced it themselves, and there was an opportunity to actually think about it privately, so they didn't have to share. Some people do share, but most of them not. And that is a very good way of actually promoting yourself as a coach, and talk about it, or talk about the experiences. And it's just an awareness, again, an awakening of color. I think 2 years ago, I did my last workshop, and someone came in, and I had all the cards on the table. And she went to this color turquoise, because that's a color she just doesn't like. But it had nothing to do with her issue. So again, she was coming in within her head, oh, that's a color I don't like, or that's a color I do like, or, if you have your favorite color is red, and all of a sudden someone asks you, okay, what is your issue? It's very difficult to say, okay, that is my favorite color, so that can't be my issue. It can. it's just a different setting. So again, what this whole webinar is more about is get out of your head, let the color do its thing.
Back, Thelma. Just take that back. I'll just
Sorry.
go back to that other one. So with the workshop, that's a good question to ask. Is the workshop satisfying enough? What it is Thelma said, it's a taste of colour. Now, the workshop is actually a wonderful way for you to let people know who you are. One of our really successful coaches, she uses, she had this beautiful collection of saris. She loves scarves. So when she does her workshop, she does it all from choosing the colours. She will, so that people will wear them. It's a fun afternoon. Everyone enjoys discussing the colours that they liked and disliked. So do you know what they're talking about? They're talking about colour. The energy in the room is absolutely beautiful. They're very open. And so what they're doing is getting to know her and trusting how she's run the workshop. And then virtually all of them will book a private session or they know about it. But it is a way for people to know what you do and how you work. And that personal connection makes a huge difference. What we do find in the workshops, Thelma, is people say, oh, I've chosen that color. And then they say, oh, I've got another color that I really don't like as well. And that's the block. And we'll say, okay, well, and we'll just explain that to them. For somebody who it's their first time looking at it, we want to keep it so that it's a taste of the color. But very often people will automatically be going into that step 2. And if you're there and you're talking with people, you can just guide them through it. And that's the beauty of doing it this way. You allow people to dive in deeply or even just shallowly. You can say, if it has brought up a big issue, if that's an issue for you, you might enjoy coming, or you might you might want to deal with that in private. So yeah, it's a great way for people to get to know you.
Yeah, and I forgot to mention, you can also play with it.
Yeah.
Because you have the negative and the positive colors there. So you can also talk even about physical symptoms. What you have physical symptoms, again, give them the first one. And then say, okay, how can you alleviate that? Or what are your goals? Give them the positive. So you could play. It's just, again, what Mary always says. What are your questions? You just play with it. But we kept it quite in such a way that it's still profound, but still private. Because when you can get a shock when the first time, like this, the story from that we had heard before this morning, that some people think, huh? How is this possible? Yeah, Mary is right. It can give you a lot of clients because people have had their first personal experience. And I always think that you have to experience things and not just take it for granted. But there is one thing that I keep, Mary and I were having a chat about that. Really let the color do its thing. Do not try to interfere. And I told that in the last webinar, and I will say it again. I thought in the beginning, oh, I've got a good intuition. Nah, it will be probably that, because I thought, oh, what the colors were saying was too direct or too, that's not possible. And the color always proved me wrong. So get out of your head, really follow the system, follow the color. I always say the language of color cannot lie. It's not always nice to hear, even when we do it on ourselves. You think, how did the color know that? But that is the strength of this. It's not us as a coach or that will know what is the best for your client. The subconscious of your client know best, because we don't know all the ins and outs of no one, not even of ourselves, to be honest. So let the color do the talking, and you just guide the process, and always believe that energy of the color. It knows best, and it will be very direct, honest, but very revealing. And that is the reason why with Color Gnostic, about one issue, you don't have to spend months or years talking about it, because it will be spoken and revealed within seconds. I've had someone, a guy who said to me, it took years and years of therapy, what you discovered in 20 minutes. Yes, and that is the point, because it's not my intuition or my knowledge or my whatever. No, the color will tell you, and just stick to it. Do not, just trust it. Just trust that, and then you will become a great coach and a guide, someone who can guide people through their issues.
And I would add to that often what we think is coaching is where you've got the problem. You know, you might be trying to start a business, for instance, and somebody is coaching you, but actually often, or you've got a problem with your child, or you're unhappy in a relationship. But often what happens is that you're just still talking about the problem. And often that's just reinforcing the problem. Oh, well, you know, you're not successful in a relationship. Oh, I always get to a certain point in a relationship and I pull back, and then it becomes there can be so many layers of the problem. The block is something quite different. It goes in quite a different direction. And it's important that that's why the step 2 is so powerful. Otherwise, it's just coaching like everyone else does. And people will ask me, oh, do you have any experience with something in particular? So I think I spoke about in the first webinar the little girl that could not swallow. She'd been a year with the psychologist. She'd been with the physical specialist. She had lost so much weight, and she was just a 7-year-old girl. They said, do you have experience in that issue? No, I don't. But what I have experience in is what is the person saying to themselves? That's what you're trying to get to. So the label was correct. She was not swallowing. She had a gag reflex trauma. That's the problem. But what I want to know is what she is saying to herself. And that's what I've got. That's the process I've got. So it's really trusting. And sometimes I am nervous if I have a very challenging situation with a client. I am nervous. And I do pray, let me be of service. What I've got to do is just relax and trust, put the client in the seat. So with that particular issue, I just had to let the colors do the talking. And I put it on that Human that I showed you, the picture of the man. And with that one, I'm able to get a lot of colors. So I've got obviously the throat was gagging, but I wanted to know what was going on her feet. What had taken the rug out from under her feet? Why were her knees so shaky? Why is her gut completely empty? That gives me a lot of questions to ask, and I'm finding out what they're saying to themselves. And that human, which will reveal things like people say, oh, I shouldn't be here. I'm not strong enough. But they can see it themselves. So I couldn't do any of my work without the colors, because otherwise it would be requiring me to know about that person. I don't know them. I would have to spend weeks and months with that little girl that couldn't swallow. She'd already been a year with the psychologist, and we solved it in one session. She said to her mother 2 days later, Mum, and this was so significant, Mum, I've unlocked my swallowing program. I've unlocked it. She had done it herself. And the mother said, Will it last? I said, Well, yes. She's just told you, I've unlocked it. And these children, it is permanent. So it's being able to, if I'm not sure I've got enough information, I will just play with the colors and say, hey, should we just choose another color? Just see what else we can find out. So rather than talking, I'll always go back to the colors to choose. And that makes my job enjoyable. I have some very, very challenging cases with children, and it just allows me to enjoy it and just to know that I'm following where the child wants to be. And then that will also work for adults, because adults are also very closed. We do not want our vulnerabilities attacked. We'll do anything. We put that wall back up. So this is such a that's not soft, it's a gentle and easy way to do something very, very difficult. And it just happens really within minutes. So we've spent the whole nearly an hour talking about it. It doesn't take an hour. It just takes just several moments really for you to get that right information. Are there any questions?
Yes, I have a question. I'm kind of curious when you have a workshop with so many people, like 50, Thelma, because I am organizing one with 70 in June. So I was thinking, how do you do it with the cards then? Because I have the workshop toolkit, but there are only 4. So how can you manage that and not getting it in a whole chok chicken farm?
No, because I was lucky. I had several toolkits, so I had more cards. And what I did, I put it all on chairs. So I had on one side, I think there were, but not even that many. I think there were 8 or so on each color. And so that was the negative and then the positive. So people would just come, have a read, and if someone else, or if there were not enough cards, I would say, okay, share, and read it together. You don't have to mention anything, but that is how I did it. And the basic colors I had put it on the wall in front of the podium.
Yes.
And Yolanda, you're saying,
Yeah.
people start talking. Do you know what people really love to talk about? They love to talk about their colours and what it means. Yeah. So they're standing in line waiting, even if they're waiting to look at their card, they say, oh, did you choose that colour too? And they say, oh, gosh, I just hate that colour. Can't bear to wear brown, for instance. Oh, you like that too. And they want to share. The colours are doing the work for you. And so you're just saying, look, just if you 7 of you are choosing that colour, just share it round. You can talk about it if you like or not. Just really open it up. People do like to talk about themselves or what's wrong with them. And we all like to know what makes us tick.
Yeah, but I think it helps what Thelma says, putting the positive cards on one side of the room, for
Yes.
example, and the other one at the other side. Then it will calm them a little bit down
yeah.
and keep them focused as well.
Well, Yolanda, a reason that also works goes back to NLP as well, and learning styles. You've got your negative on that side, and then you say, now I'd like you to move to the other side of the room. And you'll just watch the energy change. Remember, you're trying to get them out of the head space into the heart space. Bring as much as you can to the physical. And that's what we worked out to. Let's move now to the next side. And so bringing in that movement. Yeah, and we talk about those things in that module. Thelma, we have got that discount. It's just nearly 9 o'clock. It's nearly coming up to the time.
Yeah.
Do you just want to show that? Well, look, there is
Can
a
you
new.
say it? Because I don't know where this.
Oh, don't worry. There is another discount that will last for a week. Shall I tell you the? I might. Oh, I'll write in the chat. How about that? Web 3 2025, and that's going to last for a week. There's your chat. How about that? They've got it there. So what we're going to do, we've done this little series of webinars, and we know that a lot of people get it. That we send it to them.
Mary. I can't see it.
Yes, I have. Oh, maybe I haven't. I've just gone to direct. Oh, sorry, I don't want it to answer to Saskia. Sorry. I'll just say it to everybody. Everyone in meeting, I'll do it again. Look, what we're going to do next time, we've done this and we know that lots of people watch it later, but we won't.
Still don't see it.
It's there now. Done. I've done it. I had to put it to you. So what we're going to do next time is probably once every 6 weeks, we're just going to have a Q&A. Because what we'd really like you to do is to use the information that we've given you and, explore the other modules, just to give you other ways of applying what you're doing. What I find with my clients, I genuinely see my clients 3 to 4 sessions. By 3 or 4, we end up doing the vision board because they've often... they're now moving ahead. So you want to be able to move from that sort of problem situation to really moving them and opening up their world. So we're going to set up like a Q&A regularly. We'll let you know via our newsletter, etc.
I think it's 10% down.
10% on any, and that'll last for a week. And I think somebody asked us, could they pass that on to another colour gnostics person? Or yes, look, you can. Yes, if they're interested, and yes, that's fine. Oh, okay, you're right. Okay, Saskia, I've just seen that you've tried to sign into the Facebook group. Your request is still in progress. Okay, that may be at my end that I have to accept that. Sorry about that. I have a new phone and technology. Please bear with me. I will do my best.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay.
Why Mary and I want to get this out to you and other people is because it's really helpful. It could help people who are stuck in the law for a long time, and it's non-judgmental. We cannot judge anyone. We're all in the same boat. We all have our vulnerabilities. We all make mistakes, but this is just a gentle way of moving forward. And what I'm now seeing, because I started a long time ago, and in the beginning, people didn't get it. Now the time is right. People are understanding that energy, in what kind of form or shape it is, it could be sound, it could be color, it could be light. They are all emotions. We are balls of energy. So the way to move forward, or the way to heal, or the way to get an understanding, we have to look at the energy. And that is so profound. So it's a massive shift in consciousness happening at the moment, where people, and that's why Mary always says, the children, they get it. They get it. They are already wired. But we still have to get our bloody thick head around it and understand it, and go with the flow. That is our passion, and we would love you to experience the gratitude and the big difference you can make in people's lives with a very gentle way. That's it. I wanted to say that because for me that's very, very important. You always have to. Well, that is how I think. You always have to understand why you're doing certain things. What is your purpose in life? What is your passion? Well, this is ours, and we hope that we can transfer that to you as well. When you can see that you could help people who are really, there's a lot of suffering going on in the world, and people are, down. And I said that last time, the biggest healing is not only the method. It is for people to feel understood and heard. And that is what you're doing. That's it. Now on a more
Wonderful.
positive note.
Okay, so look, we'll send this recording to you. Thank you for joining us, and we'll see you in the Q&A. And when I get my new phone set up, I will I will do the Facebook. Thank you, everyone.